Okay, good morning. Jameson Nesbitt here again, and just wanted to step in here. We are ready to start off our 9 a.m. presentation on geopolitics, cybersecurity in relation to the supply chain. And we are joined by Risk Group LLC's founder and chief executive officer, Jayshree Panja, who is going to be presenting on this topic. Over to you, Jayshree. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James, for the invite and the introduction. And hello, everyone. For any of you is interested in downloading the PowerPoint presentation that we have uploaded, please go ahead and do that. It will give you an idea of the content that we are going to talk about today. So greetings, everyone. We humans have created cyberspace. There is no denying that the progress we have made as a species is historic. Our intense desire to explore the unknown beyond our known ecosystems of geospace, aquaspace, and space is actively shaping the course of human evolution. And it will continue to do so as long as new ideas, imagination, and innovation keep emerging. While cyberspace's progress so far is historical, it has also generated shocks of the democratization of destruction, the crumbling of systems, the rising digital disorder, and the development of asymmetric next generation weapons against which we are not yet prepared. These shocks reveal how fragile the achievements of cyberspace have been. They have not only undermined governance, management, and growth models, but have also broken all barriers and boundaries defined by human decision makers. It is even blurring the boundaries between human intelligence and machine intelligence, and the boundaries between man and machine and real and fake, underscoring profound shifts in the global landscape that threaten a dark and a challenging near term future. Now, at the core is the shifting away of power dynamics from the select few across nations to many, and is even further moving away entirely from humans to algorithms, thereby redefining the very criteria on which geopolitics was framed. Furthermore, innovation's democratization has led to everyone and everything, challenging everyone and everything from everywhere and anywhere. As a result, from technological influence to economic influence, cultural influence to social influence, financial influence to political influence, there is an ongoing battle to dominate the new global power spectrum by redefining and redesigning systems through cyberspace and its technologies, processes, and platforms. Thus, each new way of doing things brings a threat to the current way of doing things. This is a very unique kind of conflict for which nobody is prepared. At the core of the battle is the democratization of constructive and destructive power that is driven by the technology layers of the cyberspace ecosystem. Now, since cyberspace fundamentally transformed the human ecosystem, cyberspace's dual use nature is beginning to rewrite the rules of competition, cooperation, collaboration, and conflict that will impact our collective future. Now, meanwhile, cyberspace has given everyone the freedom to promote their constructive and destructive ideas, strategies, and narratives. Because new constructive and destructive opportunities and threats are increasing rapidly, cyberspace is a battlefield that everyone will need to face and be vigilant about. Now, when cyberspace is emerging as a most sought after battle space, it has profound implications for the security of the entire connected human CAGS ecosystem. CAGS means cyberspace, aquaspace, geospace, and space. The rise of democratization of destruction in cyberspace is escalating the conflict within, between, and across nations that is on its way to the total reset of the economic and security fundamentals. In fact, cyberspace has given a platform to humans to metastasize societal anger towards years of imbalances that may very well lead to a societal collapse. Not only that, cyberspace has provided a technological platform where any device that is connected to the internet can quickly become a weapon of war. When it can also be targeted towards anyone or anything connected to the network, the implications are not just for cyberspace, they are for the entire connected human CADS ecosystem. The potential of extensive collateral damage to anyone and everyone, and the targeting of an attack on civilians or enemy countries' military computers to damage systems, assets, and infrastructure is shaking the very foundation of security at all levels. When cyberspace is given destructive power to everyone, to a common man, any small and otherwise relatively insignificant actors, the reality of anyone and everyone able to operate behind false IP addresses, foreign servers, and aliases with almost complete anonymity and relative immunity is shaking the very meaning of an enemy. The challenge is that it is difficult to time digital location authentication with a physical location to understand who is behind any cyber attack or warfare. At the moment, we do not have that capability. Moreover, cyberspace's architecture and making have given anonymity to human and machine users and can disguise the location of origin of the attack. So, unless we can develop effective technology that can tie digital location authentication to the physical location, it is challenging to identify who is behind any attack. While still mostly limited to cyberspace, cyber warfare is on its way to impacting aquaspace, geospace, and space as well. What is concerning is that any potential misuse, abuse, modification, or destruction of the critical infrastructure and strategic assets in all these spaces can lead to cascading effects of damage that can put the supply chains at risk. Cybercrime is automated. The rapid advances in artificial intelligence are pushing the criminal industry to be intelligent and perhaps autonomous, irrespective of whether the cybercrimes are dependent on cyberspace or are enabled by cyberspace. The reality remains that the blurring boundaries between civilian crimes and war offenses against not only the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of digital data, but the manipulation and destruction of strategic assets are destroying the very fabric of society. As a result, we need to understand how to quickly and efficiently recognize some of the most common attacks coming from cyberspace and through cyberspace, as getting informed about cyber attacks has now become a survival necessity. However, this is by no means going to be easy as the cyber attacks transform to take on new types, techniques, and tools, and we have no systems in place that can share the threat intelligence in real time. Now, as nations move towards connecting aquaspace, geospace, and space infrastructure to cyberspace, each nation's strategic assets has become fundamentally dependent on complex software algorithms and applications to perform vital service functions that include energy distribution or electric grid, water supply, transportation, communication, financial system, oil rigs, ships, satellites, airport and port systems, and so much more. Now, the conflict, crime, and warfare have gone digital in cyberspace because interconnected critical infrastructure across geospace, aquaspace, and space has numerous access points connected to cyberspace, it is not just the critical infrastructure in cyberspace that is at risk. All connected infrastructures are at risk of becoming war tools and targets. As a result, the potential implications for strategic assets and critical infrastructure threats are enormous, especially when digital networks are rapidly becoming a basic infrastructure, just like roads, electricity, or water. There are clear indicators that the attacks on critical infrastructure are less about stealing digital data and are more about controlling, manipulating, or destroying the industrial control systems. Since security breaches are becoming common in industrial control systems and supervisory control and data acquisition systems, the cybersecurity focus has rightfully shifted to the critical infrastructure. Now, it is crucial to understand that today's critical infrastructure uses many software applications in many layers of processes. While the digitization of critical infrastructure has benefited significantly from greater integration of ICDT to make systems at all levels more efficient, cost effective, timely, and accessible, it is the reliability, integrity, and risk resiliency that is coming in question, especially as they become a target for warfare. As a result, defending critical infrastructure requires a different approach as it takes on a physical aspect in addition to the digital, and in the coming years, perhaps quantum. The very technologies thrusting the nation's infrastructure towards digitization simultaneously open its assets to external and internal vulnerability to intruder access. Moreover, many of these technologies are automated, intelligent, and wireless, adding complex security vulnerabilities to the critical infrastructure across aquaspace, geospace, and space. So, this desire to add intelligence to the hardware and software components to every segment of the critical infrastructure has unleashed the potential for IP based digital technologies that are ripe with promise and rife with potential security vulnerabilities. Also, space is a vital part of the critical infrastructure that human civilization depends on. Today, we use space for communication, monitoring the environment, collecting intelligence, conducting crucial scientific experiments, and providing data for global positioning, navigation, and timekeeping. Our use cases are going to expand extensively as space exploration accelerates in the coming years. But for now, countries are increasingly becoming dependent on global satellite capabilities for systems that govern aircrafts and ships navigation, military operations, financial transactions, the internet, telecommunications, and more. Now, satellites, they depend on cyberspace technology, which includes software, hardware, and so many other digital components. So, any threat to a satellite's control system or available bandwidth, that is electromagnetic spectrum strategy, poses a direct challenge to critical national assets since space is fundamental to advancing our collective security. As a result, the safety and security of space infrastructure and electromagnetic spectrum remain paramount for everyone. Although emerging technologies such as AI, the IoTs, quantum physics, and nanosatellites could be force multipliers for space capabilities, cyberspace's increased commonness means it can bring the integrity challenges of digital data carried through these technologies. Now, any threats that could impact a satellite's controls, communication, reliability, or bandwidth availability would pose a direct challenge to the critical CAGS assets. As a result, if cybersecurity vulnerabilities and emerging security threats are not effectively addressed, it could result in severe consequences for not only national security or international security, but the very security of our collective species. Adversaries in all sizes and shapes are finding new ways to infiltrate strategic systems across CAGS. Now, cyber vulnerabilities undermine confidence in strategic systems. They increase uncertainty in information and analysis. This further impacts the credibility and reliability of deterrence and strategic stability of the CAGS ecosystem. Loss of trust in digital technology also has severe implications for attribution and strategic calculus in crisis decision making and may increase the risk of misperception. Now, this dependency on space based technology has significant implications for the way nation conducts warfare today and how it will do so in the future. Now, considering that digital technologies are fundamental to CAGS infrastructure and strategic systems, none of them is immune to cyber attacks. Moreover, any digital system that relies upon near real time information is vulnerable to cyber attacks. Now, the loss of one or more of these capabilities because of human or system error or through offensive cyber operations conducted by an adversary could have severe strategic, operational, and tactical consequences. As a result, the use of emerging technologies, which includes AI and quantum based cryptography to computing and the development of space based internet infrastructure, is on its way to defining the future of warfare. Now, while cyber warfare's impact will vary by the use of cyber weapon, target, and severity, there is also a growing threat of corporate espionage targeting intellectual property and also government secrets, of course. The weaponization of cyberspace, its integration with AI, and the combination of an ongoing cyber warfare arms race that is entering geospace, aquaspace, and space, and a lack of clear rules governing human and machine behavior, online conflict means there is a real risk that any cyber incident could rapidly escalate out of control, and the war will not just be restricted to cyberspace or cyber weapons. Now, while cybersecurity breaches have become a norm, it is essential to note today that information warfare dominates cyber warfare. The reason is information has a dual use and is a weapon of war. It is widely used against enemy nations and it targets very effectively. Now, since information is not legally recognized as a weapon of war in any sense by the law, it is currently very effectively used to strong arm, threaten, and manipulate the decision making process at all levels for all kinds of situations. Now, in cyberspace, everyone has an agenda and everyone is an activist. As seen today, many are to achieve social, political, economic security and strategic objectives without the utilization of military force. Cyberspace has successfully reformed the rules of wars, methods of war, and the nature of war. The evolving information warfare, where information is broadly used as a weapon, has come to play a very divisive and decisive role in achieving targeted goals. In fact, in growing situations, information warfare is proving to be way more effective than traditional military power. Now, since ongoing warfare is dominated by information, everything has become a fair game to demoralize enemies by any means to get the upper hand. While the speed and scope of information dissemination are growing enormously, so has the power of new information tools, techniques, and targets to leak information and spread misinformation. And there is no global information defense strategy. Each nation has a different approach and policy for information warfare, defense, and offense, even if they have one. While some countries focus on disrupting information war weapons and their performance and command functions, some choose to completely stop the free flow of information to their nation, as observed in China and many other authoritarian countries. Irrespective of the defense and offense strategy, one thing is undeniable rather. Information has become a weapon of war and everyone is a target. This is an invisible battle space. Cyberspace is designed and developed to be an invisible battle space. Furthermore, its battleground, weapons, tools, and activities are unseen to most trained eyes. The nature of cyberspace, the cyber battlefield, and war weapons are forcefully controlled. Moreover, the common man is oblivious to the reality of cyber warfare or its impact. Besides, CAGS's blurring boundaries and mounting pressure from cyberspace necessitates that the cyber warfare challenges ought to be fought using more tools, resources, collaboration, and cooperation than we currently have. Governments alone cannot fight cyber warfare, nor can a nation's military. The democratization of destruction has forced us to think of the democratization of cybersecurity risk governance. While most large organizations have enough resources, small organizations and individuals lack those resources for the security. Moreover, nations still do not have effective technologies and tools to provide a tracking capability of any cyber attack in real time. Also, cyber intelligence still remains siloed and not shared. Furthermore, the threats posed by cyber warfare are being combined with AI and facial recognition technology and information and communication technology. So, the rise of highly sophisticated AI programs are already being used to control or destroy enemy systems. As a result, it is perhaps fair to say that nations are already in the middle of a ferocious cyber arms race, which is very complex and probably beyond human intelligence capabilities to respond. Therefore, it is essential to evaluate whether we are at a point where simply mere human intelligence will be enough to manage the integrated security risk facing nations. The emerging crisis necessitates order in cyberspace. However, the march towards digital disorder indicates many inflection points for our collective future. Due to ongoing trust issues, we are beginning to witness a reversal of globalization and nations' internal fracturing. Long held external alliances seem to be under immense strain as well. So, amidst changes, challenges, and ongoing crises in cyberspace, we must understand if there is a way to maintain digital order and prevent digital disorder. Now, since the world order's future is not preordained, where we go from here depends massively on how we come up with new ideas to reshape the human ecosystem fundamentally. And for that, it's crucial to understand not only the making of cyberspace, but also understand clearly what cybersecurity is. Now, in the context of cyberspace, cybersecurity is commonly understood to be the state of being protected against the criminal or unauthorized use of electronic data or the measures taken to achieve this. However, this understanding of cybersecurity is very narrow and misleading. The reason is it does not take into account the strategic impact of the potential loss of value due to changes emerging from cyberspace. So, we at Risk Group describe cybersecurity risk as those risks that arise from the possibility of losing the value of tactical, operational, and strategic entities, events, initiatives, and relationships. This could range from existing and emerging strategic initiatives, industries, systems, processes, and so much more. It is a measure of the level to which an entity within any NGO, that means nations, its government, industries, organizations, and academia, is or could be threatened by the potential changes emerging from and due to cyberspace. It usually is a function of the unfavorable effect that results from the loss of confidentiality, security, stability, necessity of survival of the current entities, events, and relationships, and the likelihood of the potential adverse impact on the informational, tactical, and strategic operations of respective NGO and CAGS. Now, while there is a focus on managing independent security risk, there are no efforts to control the integrated security risk. Moreover, very little attention is being paid to underlying computer code that makes algorithms and applications vulnerable to security threats. So it's crucial to focus on the security of and from the computer code. When analyzing cybersecurity risk, understanding system vulnerabilities is as important as understanding the threat landscape. The reason is that Threats alone cannot pose a risk if there were no known vulnerabilities in the systems, infrastructure, or the human personnel for any adversary to exploit. Similarly, system vulnerabilities would not always result in risk, especially in peacetime when there is no incentive to attack or infiltrate. At time, nations procure. Their focus is on procuring hardware and software to be integrated into the national critical systems, infrastructure, and defense architecture, which becomes the part of the overall capability. Due to cyberspace technologies blurring boundaries, the private commercial supply chain is embedded in nearly every defense and offense hardware and software aspect. This may not necessarily be a particular vulnerability as long as the equipment procured is secure. However, if digital hardware and software are procured from the commercial industry with flaws, or any intentional or unintentional manipulation, it may expose systems to additional vulnerabilities. Now, from a cybersecurity point of view, each interface could present a vulnerability and become a weakness. An interface typically requires manual processes to establish its operation and the administration of all those components involved if we talk about critical infrastructure. Now, adversaries infiltrating the CAGS systems could exploit this weak software implementation or the incompatibility of network or data transfer protocols in the supply chain. Now, while the absence of data is easy to distinguish, data manipulation or erosion of confidentiality at such an interface is potentially very challenging to determine. So, vulnerabilities can stem from data exchange interfaces or the silo security view and approach that we all have across nations, the standard of data network, or constant use of old and proprietary IT or OT hardware and software, and the failure to conduct regular software updates to remove any known vulnerabilities. So, in such a challenging environment, it does not seem easy to ensure the security of the information delivered. So, now let's take a moment to understand the making of cyberspace, to understand its geopolitics. As we know, cyberspace is made of several layers of existing and emerging interconnected technologies, about 14, 15 layers. It is computer code, connected computers, layers of technology, the internet and protocols, processes, and space that it generates within, between, and across the layers of technology that makes cyberspace. Now, the entirely human made cyberspace primarily enables deterritorialized, democratized, and centralized and decentralized information exchange between humans and machines and machines to take place instantaneously. So the question is, why is cyberspace at the core of geopolitical conflict? The reason is each layer of cyberspace and the associated technologies are compelling instruments for the power play. While in cyberspace, or cyberspace is not a territory where nations can go and plant a physical flag to mark their occupation, it is a territory that can help countries mark their digital flag by ensuring they control the code of diverse layers of cyberspace technology. As a result, we will see a growing conflict in cyberspace and a desire to conquer cyberspace technology layers and their code for operations in the coming years. As seen, cyberspace is now taking center stage as the disputes over AI, blockchain, and 5G technology. They all exemplify crisis changing nature. And as a result, cybersecurity is also on the trade battleground, as we see with 5G. Cyberspace technology has become a tool for international trade warfare because of the fear of weaponized technology entering a nation's cyberspace. There is a growing call to avoid all digital technology products from any competing or enemy countries. The reality is that the geopolitics cyberspace has brought nations to the doorstep of digital decoupling. If the current trends continue, the decoupling will not be just between the US and China, it will also be between the US and Russia Europe and China, India and China, Europe and Russia, and so much more. So the question is, what will be the implications of the decoupling of digital economies? The decoupling of digital economies is in reality also decoupling of all the information and communication technology products and services that we have embedded over the years. The broader implications are enormous in terms of technology resources and the economy and security at all levels. Competition in cyberspace can be incredibly fierce. Without competition, growth will be stagnant. The competition requires open doors and level playing fields. So, when disconnecting from other ICT economies, nations might insulate themselves from the growing cybersecurity risk. But the question is, which other risk will emerge in the process? There is no doubt that cyberspace is enabling personal, professional, political, and psychological power struggles. The interactions mediated by cyberspace technologies of different layers are very different from the traditional techniques and electronics nations are used to. No countries are sure of how to deal with the key differentiating factor of cyberspace, its anonymity. Now, when interacting in cyberspace using social media platforms, it is often impossible to identify or evaluate who is on the other end or whom we are interacting with. Arguably, this growing de individuation and facelessness have enormous consequences for emerging social behavior, clashes, and chaos we are witnessing today. And as a result, it is not only the blurring of social identity, but the absence and therefore presence of certain cyber norms that are redefining the growing democratization of destruction and are shaking up the contested commons of cyberspace, aquaspace, geospace, and space. The reality today is that many governments have begun to construct digital walls through stringent domestic standards and data localization requirements. A lack of trust in the technology platform, nations, and the rule of law leads some to split the national internet from the global internet. The rise of digital disorder has put the free flow of information and communication at risk. Now, as the power of the free flow of information threatens nations' governance, management, and technology models, many governments are reversing the course of global connectivity and information flows. Some nations today are defining and designing digital barriers to their country's cyberspace from the global cyberspace. So, with the rise of digital disorder, nationalism is also on the rise. The current trend towards high levels of nationalism and strict government control of many digital platforms or models and systems is likely to dominate the discussion on the future of cyberspace and its operating environment, especially about the fueling distrust of foreign technology and tools that make cyberspace. For instance, digital surveillance has become a reality even without us knowing that we are continuously being monitored. So the question becomes how to balance the use of technology while protecting our rights and how to manage the supply chain implications. For instance, the manipulated digital supply chain. There is a growing fear that the adversaries could manipulate the digital supply chain, which could pose a severe threat to national security. While there is an acknowledgement of this concern, in maintaining the digital supply chain security and integrity, there does not seem to be any convincing and credible measures taken to secure the supply chain, primarily due to lack of information and capabilities. The security threats brought on by the criminal activity to the digital supply chain, they pose a significant threat to nations' safety and security. Despite that, we have no system in place to audit algorithms of any technology entering our nations. Moreover, we do not have security checkpoints to investigate any digital data packets coming our way. We do not have a consumer protection agency to audit algorithms, nor we have any audit process for poorly manufactured computer chips or chips that have been retrieved and repackaged, infringing on intellectual property rights, or we do not even have robust process to root out malware embedded on the chips to exfiltrate information from computers that can be used in any future crimes. We also do not have an easy way to differentiate authentic and fraudulent goods. Cyberspace has blurred war and peace boundaries as the definition of peacetime and conflict time activities is becoming increasingly blurred. So, as adversaries continuously test their cyber capabilities, including through space means, our defense posture cannot only rely on how to win the next conflict or how to manage emerging vulnerabilities. We should make sure that threats do not materialize through effective security risk management frameworks, systems, and deterrence postures. The reason is we have to survive as a species. Surviving as a species is a complex multidimensional process. Humanity has survived so far based on our group survival strategy. While we are used to living in a tribal mode based on nationality, ethnicity, religion, nation state, political ideologies, and more, it is time we evaluate if we continue living in the standard model of tribalism, what will we gain and what will we lose? Because as long as we exist in the tribal version of our survival strategy, every new disruptive technology will also bring us the power of self destruction, since every discovery and every new invention, first and foremost, becomes a weapon. We have witnessed a world with weapons that can eradicate life on planet Earth, from nuclear, chemical, biological, and autonomous weapon system to cyber weapons and electromagnetic weapon system. The list of technology that can destroy humanity keeps increasing. And as a result, we are all living a paradox. Whether promise or peril prevails will define and determine humanity's future and everything that will ever happen to any of us, individually and collectively. I hope that humanity can count on each one of us. Thank you for your time to listen to me.
Thank you, Jayshree. We greatly appreciate it. I really enjoyed your presentation. I am just looking through some of the questions that have potentially popped through. It doesn't look like we have any at the moment. So what we'll do is we'll redirect any of those questions to you if they do pop up before our next presentation or after that, as folks absorb your information you've shared this morning. Thank you very much for joining us. I had a conversation recently with a few of our colleagues at the Cyber Senate about counterfeit products entering the supply chain and what a challenge that has been also. So something to look out for, I would imagine, and we could probably run a whole panel session on that.
Yes, of course, of course. And anyone has any questions, you can reach out to me by email. I'll be happy to, share what I can, with the knowledge and information that I have.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It was my
Thank you,
pleasure.
Jayshree. Thank you very much.
Thank
Have
you.
a very good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.